What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's FedEx St. Jude Championship, the first playoff event of the year. Remember, we're going to play only 3 playoff events this year, and don't worry, there's only a 2-week off season. It's the shortest off season in all of sports, so there will be more golf almost immediately after the Tour Championship for us to dive into every single week. I'm going to go through the course, the field, everything that's going to happen this week, and it's going to be very data driven. Do me a favor, hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed. It's super helpful for me to be able to continue doing this and hopefully constantly making it better. Okay, let's jump into it. Here's the course key stats tool on RickRunGood.com. Everything you see is from my website. It is a massive golf database for fantasy and for betting. Lots of visualizations on there, all that fun stuff. Okay, couple of notes. Leg 1 of the FedEx Cup playoffs. This is the last cut event that we have. So there's 125 golfers in the field. They will be cut on Friday like a normal event. And then starting next week at the BMW Championship, that's just going to be the top 70 golfers moving on. So no cut needed there. And then when we get to 30 golfers at East Lake for the Tour Championship, obviously no cut there either. I'll be at the BMW Championship in Wilmington. If anybody's going to be around, wants to say hello, come find me. I'll let you know where I'm at. But this week we're in Memphis, TPC Southwind. And I got to admit, this is a ball striker's paradise, right? And I think there's a lot of evidence towards that. If you look at the correlated stats model, what you'll see is strokes gained approach was the most highly correlated stat to success over the years. That is, it ranks 4th, which means there's only 3 other courses on the PGA Tour in which strokes gained approach was more important. Strokes gained off the tee was 8th, which means there's only 7 other courses in which strokes gained off the tee is more important. And that is history at TPC Southwind. So this event has kind of a long and confusing history. It was the FedEx St. Jude Classic. That was just a regular PGA Tour event. They held that for, my God, 50, 60 years, something like that. But it was played at TPC Southwind basically every year starting in, I think it was 1988 or 1989. Then it got elevated to a WGC event, a World Golf Championships event for 3 or 4 years, which created a situation where you had a smaller but more elite field, 78 golfers, the world's best, but we were still playing at TPC Southwind. Well, this is the first year, now that they've gotten rid of the WGC events, except for the match play, this is the first year that this event is a playoff event. So we've played TPC Southwind every single year, basically since I was born, but that the field and kind of what you can expect out of it has changed a little bit. But either way, I think it's going to be a pretty stout test. So a couple of other things. There is a huge difference in playing out of the fairway versus playing out of the rough. In fact, the rough around here is some of the most penal rough that you get on the PGA Tour. It's not necessarily thick, but it's the unpredictability of it and being able to control your spin and getting it correct and all that fun stuff. The other things to note are the conditions in Memphis this year have been very, very dry. They're like down 5 inches of rain compared to what they would normally get in June and July. So I believe this thing's going to play pretty firm, pretty fast. Obviously, we've gotten different fields here each of the last, basically constantly changing in the last 8 years or so. But the winning score, 14, 15 under par, generally gets the job done. I think there's only been once or twice in the last decade it's gotten to like 20, but I don't necessarily see that happening with how dry it's been unless they get dumped on this week. But yeah, this is going to be a true test, and you're going to find the guys that are best suited for this are the ones that are hitting it long and straight off the tee, playing from the fairway, who are hitting it into correct pin positions, putting, not necessarily a massive attribute for me this week, especially with how volatile it is, but we're going to go right back to those ball strikers, and we'll try to identify as many of those as possible along with the great course history that we have. Let's go to the cheat sheet. The cheat sheet. Okay. Wow. 7 guys over $10,000, which certainly speaks to the strength of this field. The other thing that immediately jumps off of the screen at me is that Jon Rahm is the 7th most expensive golfer. I could go back. We have probably not seen Jon Rahm as the 7th most expensive golfer in quite some time. We will discuss whether or not that is worth investing in as we get a little bit further down the board. But man, that's kind of the first thing that jumps out at me. Rory McIlroy, $11,000 flat. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, and I actually tweeted something about this out. I think that Rory McIlroy, because he hasn't won a major championship, like, people assume he's not playing well, which is just an absolute absurdity, right? In fact, he's playing better than everybody by a wide margin. So I tweeted this out. The last 8 starts for Rory McIlroy, he has gained 98 strokes to the field in 8 starts. That's like 12.5 per start. The average winner on the PGA Tour only gains like 14.5 strokes or 14 strokes. So he's basically a stroke and a half worse than the winner or than the average PGA Tour winner over 8 starts. That's insane. The fact that he only has 1 win is insane. This 8-event stretch is actually the best 8-event stretch from any golfer dating back to the start of last year. Okay. So he is historically in just a prime spot right now in terms of how he's playing. It probably is the most, going back to the start of last year, that's just what I was computing at the time. I'd have to go back and run more. It could go back a lot further than that. And when you look at how he's doing it, look at the ball striking category. Since the Masters, 7.5, 8.5, 10.5, 5.5, 10.5, 7.5, 5.5, 9.5. It's insane. So that's what, 8, 16, 24, 32 rounds. Last 32 rounds, everybody in the field via the ball striking numbers. Let's see. Rory's number 1. He's the only guy over 2. So if you want a guy who's hot, Rory's the hottest. If you want a guy who's ball striking it well, Rory's striking it the best. He's probably the only guy, just kind of a quick, here, I can do it like this. Quick little glance here. Rory McIlroy, the only guy in the field who's gaining at least a stroke off the tee and a stroke on approach. That is a very, very dangerous combination. I don't particularly love Rory McIlroy's 9-1, 8-1, 10-1 odds this week, but only $11,000 feels like potentially an opportunity to buy on Rory here. Let's just kind of see. Yeah, I mean, there have been plenty of time. He was 11,500 at the Wells Fargo. He was 11,100 at the Open Championship. We've seen even more expensive versions of Rory during this really hot run, and now he's $11,000 flat. So, man, it's gonna be hard to kind of move me off of that. Scotty Scheffler is next. If you saw the power rankings there, Scotty Scheffler was basically right behind Rory McIlroy in terms of the ball striking numbers. The putter has cooled off a little bit. If you are looking to kind of split hairs, I suppose you have to be worried that the putter has kind of gone away from Scotty Scheffler. He's actually lost strokes putting in 3, 4, 5, 6 of his last 8. Not particularly great, but he's had some time off from the Open Championship. Maybe he can get that right. We're splitting hairs to the top of the board. That's the only hair that we can really split here. Xander Schauffele, 10,600 is fine. I think he's priced very fairly. Same thing with Cam Smith. The bottom of this $10,000 range. Patrick Cantlay, again, kind of low key, don't forget about Patrick Cantlay with what Rory McIlroy's been doing, with what Tony Finau's been doing, with what Xander Schauffele's been doing. It's been a great stretch from RBC heritage for Patrick Cantlay, where he's got, that's a top 14 in every event dating back to the RBC heritage, which is 9 events by my quick count. So 8 of them finishing inside the top 14. He's very well-rounded. We talked about this all the time. When he gets into these well-rounded modes, he's very difficult to contend with. We'll talk about course history here in just a second. And then you get JT and you get Justin Thomas. Let's just do like a mini little deep dive on, or JT and Jon Rahm, a mini little deep dive on both of these guys, because when JT is at his best, the ball striking is how he gets it done. Unfortunately, we're not really seeing that right now. His last 3, he's been pedestrian off the tee. His last 3, he's been He was great at the U.S. Open on approach, not very good at the Scottish Open, and not very good at the Open Championship. The putter has seemingly lost him again. He's lost 4 out of 5 weeks there. So that's a little bit concerning. Then we'll just look at Jon Rahm before we look at the course history here. Rahm is, this is that continued trend, right? Where he's just an absolute monster off the tee, struggling to hit it close. The putter comes and goes. He's kind of fixed the around the green play. The putter's been generally better, but the approach play is kind of the big concern here. So if we look at the last, let's see what that is. Last, 32 for just kind of that 8 event stretch. Jon Rahm's, the worst guy above. Well, actually, hold on. Let's flip this around. Yeah, the worst guy above $9,500 on approach. Like, that's a little bit concerning. So, the way that I see this, Rory McIlroy, I think, is kind of a clear one. Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele. I probably prefer Xander. I probably go Rory, Xander, Cantlay, Scotty. The discount on Rahm, Cam Smith, JT, something like that. And we'll see how ownership plays itself out. The other thing I want to point out here very early in the show, if you go to the Holy Grail and you look at TPC Southwind in terms of course history, remember, this is going to be all the events, right? This is going to be your FedEx St. Jude Classic, your WGC, your I guess that's it. Right, because this is the third one. So I guess that's it. But look at the top players in terms of course history. Rory, again, another checkbox in his favor. The best of everybody over 10K. 1.5 strokes gained per round over 20 rounds. Scotty Scheffler's been pretty good, half a stroke. JT's been the good one here. So that's kind of the other thing. You look at this and you say, okay, well, maybe you buy on Justin Thomas, who's not playing as well, but he's going back to a course he's played really well at. That's an argument to be made. Cam Smith has played 14 rounds at TPC Southwind, hasn't gone well. He's actually losing strokes to the field. So you can kind of see the rest of this, but obviously a combination is required when making these decisions. But Rory looks really, really good. Let's go to the 9K range and see what we can find, because there's a lot of strong names here as well. The 9K is really hard to dismiss, right? You have to kind of love the 9K range just because of the names here. Matt Fitzpatrick, who's been awesome and has 2 top 6 finishes here, that's fine. Tony Finau is arguably criminally priced, right? Coming off the 2 wins, and it's been even better. Like, yeah, he got 2 victories, but he's been phenomenal all summer long. I looked this up. There's only I tweeted it out a couple weeks ago. There's only like 15 instances of guys that gained 17 strokes or more in an event this year. Tony Finau has 3 of them. He's the only guy who has multiple instances of it. So his upside is incredible. He's fixed the putter. The ball striking is insane. He is criminally priced. Let's continue on that last 32 conversation. Tony Finau is 3rd behind only Xander Schauffele and Rory McIlroy in terms of strokes gained total, 2.5 per round. Big gap between him and Patrick Cantlay. If we look at the weighted stuff, he might get a little bit worse here just because of his wins were 3M and Rocket Mortgage, but he's still 9th. He's still been better than Matt Fitzpatrick, who's more expensive. He's been better than Jon Rahm, who's been more expensive. So whatever Tony Finau does this week, I think we can agree that's a pretty bad price on him. Good for us, bad by the pricing guys. What I'm hoping for, and we'll see this as the week goes on. I'll do a live show Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, Rick Run Good YouTube channel. What I'm kind of hoping for is for all that ownership to get sucked up to Tony Finau, to get sucked up to Cam Young, maybe go down to Victor Hovland, who we'll talk about in a second, and leave Will Zalatoris here at $9,500 all by himself. So the last couple of weeks, if you've been following along, you've heard the refrain on Will Zalatoris that, hey, Detroit Golf Club, not a particularly great setup for him. Hey, Sedgefield, not a particularly great setup for him. A little bit better, but not great. What's he do? T20, T21 on 2 golf courses that I don't think were all that well suited for him. What does he get this week at TPC Southwind? arguably one of the better setups for him, because what does Will Zalatoris do well? He hits it long, he hits it straight, and he is just an absolute flusher with his irons and his wedges. Well, remember, this golf course is going to reward that. It's going to reward the ball striking. You look at what he's done in his only trip here, an 8th place finish last year. Yeah, makes complete sense, because this is a great spot for him. This really magnifies his strengths. It kind of covers up a little bit of his weaknesses, which, by the way, his weakness, obviously the putter, right? Obviously the putter, but he's like kind of been okay, right? His last 3, he's been basically tour average in his last 3 starts. If you get that again this week, I think we're in for some good things. He also made the caddy change, right? So he's got a different voice on the bag. Maybe that's what he needs, a little bit of a spark. I'm really, I will probably bet Zalatoris this week. I don't know if I'll get a great number on him, but after seeing him finish inside the top 25 at 2 golf courses that were arguably some of the worst golf courses for him on the schedule, going to a place that is probably top 3, top 5 for him, Torrey, whatever your U.S. Open setup's going to be, Memorial might be a decent spot for him, or Bay Hill. Like this is a great spot for him. So I'll be interested to see how everything shakes out in the 9K. The other one here is Victor, who I think we have to talk about. So we haven't seen him since the Open Championship. The Sunday was obviously a little bit disappointing to play out of the final group and finish T4, but this on paper should be a course that sets up well for him. He has said this is one of his favorite spots on tour. I know that he has been in Memphis working with his coach, Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith is based out of Memphis, or just about 15 minutes outside of Memphis in Tennessee. They've been at TPC Southwind. They've been grinding. Like I think you're going to get a really good engaged version of Victor on a golf course that, again, should suit his strengths. We'll stick with that last 32. That's just what we've been rolling with here. And we'll look at the ball striking numbers, and let's see where Victor shows up. Well, not as high as I would like, admittedly. Did I scroll past him? No, he's right here. So 0.70 over his last 32. That's the same as Kevin Streelman. It's less than Johnny Vegas. It's less than some of these other guys that you would expect him to be better at. What is he like last 100? I bet you it's a lot better than that. Yeah, it's 3rd. So what you're kind of hoping for is some time with coach, some time off, some time with coach can get you back to being the ball striking magician that you were kind of all at the start of 2022. So I'll be thrilled if I can get like a single digit owned Victor Hovland this week. That's the goal. As we jump into the 8K, I want to look at a couple of other things here. I want to look at the trends. So this is the trends tool on RickRunGood.com. Kind of shows you who's playing over their head, who's not. I got the last 20 rounds in here. You could argue this could probably be like 12 rounds. If you really want to see trending, you should probably make this shorter. So the way to read this is Tony Finau is actually gaining 2 strokes per round over his 100 round baseline. His 100 round baseline is probably pretty good, right? His 100 round baseline is like a stroke and a quarter. So now he's like, 2 strokes over that. You're talking about him playing way over his head here. Trey Molinak's also over his head. A little bit reliant on the putter, but he's doing it in a pretty decent way. Tom Kim at $8,000, obviously playing over his head. Emiliano Grillo, Chesson Hadley, Ches Reavie, Scott Stallings. These guys that you could argue are getting hot at the right time, kind of making a run here. You also look at it, how they do compared to their putting. So this chart right here makes it very, very simple. Guys that are hitting it better than their baseline, but are not putting to their baseline, right? So you just say, okay, well, continue hitting it that way, and marry that with just like your baseline of putting, like Brendan Steele on the verge of a breakout, Troy Merritt, Wyndham Clark, Davis Riley, David Lipsky, Patton Kizzire, even Shane Lowry to an extent. These are guys that are in that upper left-hand quadrant that you'd be really, really excited about. And a lot of these names, especially Tom Kim, who I'm very interested to see what, a community win last week, and now you're $8,000, and you might be like, we don't know what he is. Is Tom Kim Colin Morikawa, or is he Garrick Higo, right? When you win as early as he did in 15 starts and as young, 20 years old, you're going to get a lot of these comps. And it's probably somewhere in between Garrett Giggo and Colin Morikawa. But at $8,000 the week after you boat race a field, after you quad number one, I think he's going to be really, really popular. So we'll see. We'll actually probably find out earlier. We'll probably find out in the Jock market. So Jock market is stock market DFS. It's buy, sell, trade short shares of athletes. Tom Kim will probably be very popular on Wednesday night when we do the IPO. Last week, he was very popular. He went for $6.68 last week. He got the full $25 a share payout. So that's $18 a share you made on Tom Kim. If you are a Russell Henley backer, you still made $7.70 a share because he went from $7.30 to $15 a share. There was a ton of high ROI guys like Ben Griffin, who was $1.76 in IPO, $16 a share. Max McGreevy, $1.77 to $13. So a lot of different ways to play this. And Jock market is one of my favorites because of kind of the ability to get big returns from, some of the lower guys that are further down the board. Also, we do a power hour Wednesday night, Rick Run Good YouTube channel, 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, take you through the final hour. You can go bid on shares of athletes. Use the code Rick. There's a link in the description. The tools that I showed you, these are free. You can go to RickRunGood.com underneath free tools and go through all the data. Very, very helpful stuff. Hope you enjoy. Colin Morikawa, 8,700. Is that the cheapest we've seen on Colin Morikawa in what? What do we want to guess? 8,700. Wow. Yeah, the cheapest he's been. Well, the Tour Championship doesn't really count because that's a staggered start, so you have to kind of throw those out the window. So of a regular event, he has not been this cheap. Wow. Since the 2020 PGA Championship. You guys remember how he finished that week? Yeah, he won it. Before that, he was 8,400 at the 2020 Arnold Palmer Invitational, finished T9. Then he was kind of often in that mid to high $8,000 range. Wow. So basically before Colin Morikawa became Colin Morikawa, that's the last time he was this cheap. So let's look at this together. What do we see? Well, it's kind of understandable, right, that he's this cheap. He hasn't played well. He missed the cut at the Scottish Open. He missed the cut at the Open Championship. He did have 3 really good rounds at the U.S. Open, finished 5th that week. That is by far the best 3 rounds we've gotten from him since the Masters. You can see a lot of struggling play. So if we go back to that, again, we're just kind of sticking with that top, last 32 rounds, give everybody 8 starts. Where does Morikawa rank out in this? Well, he's gaining about a stroke to the field in his last 32. It's okay, right? It is, let's see. Well, it's 42nd. It's 42nd in the field in the last 32. So, boy, what case can we make here? What case can we make? The ball striking numbers haven't been horrific. I think what you're doing, if you want to get Colin Morikawa in your lineups, is you are taking a cheap flyer on a guy who has all the upside in the world, right? That's going to be the argument for Morikawa, who finished 26th and 20th in his 2 trips to this event. You are buying literally a 2-year low, right? More than 2 years. May 2020 or June 20, whatever that was. You're buying a 2-year low on Morikawa, and we'll see what the ownership is. But that's already a pretty compelling case in itself. And when he's playing his best, it's an absolute perfect setup for him. So this to me is going to be dictated by ownership and by your goals, which I don't think we talk about that enough, right? Like, what are your goals? Are your goals to make, play a single entry and double up? Then Colin Morikawa is probably not the guy for you. Is your goal to win like the 200K up top and be in a field of 100, 150 max and get twice the level of exposure to Colin Morikawa? Like, because Colin Morikawa is going to give you legit upside that some of his other peers down here just do not have. The rest of this 8K range, we already talked about Tom Kim. He is very likely to be incredibly popular. Joaquin Niemann is quite interesting. We got to do a little bit of a deep dive here. He's $8,100. I don't want to start giving out lineups, but like if you got Morikawa and Neiman into the same lineup, that's pretty fascinating, right? This is a guy who's gained strokes off the tee in every event since the RSM Classic. That was last year in November. He's gained a ton of strokes on approach in his last 5 starts, gained basically multiple strokes in 4 of his last 5. The ball striking numbers have been phenomenal. Hasn't lost there since the match play, which is a little bit of wonky numbers. So if you give him credit there, you say he hasn't lost in the ball striking category since Houston. Around the green, hit or miss. Putting, this is a little bit bizarre. His last 4 have not been good, but he is historically kind of a better putter than this. So you're wondering if he can marry that. Has he played here before? I think he has. I think he's played both of these. Yeah, he's played as the FedEx St. Jude Classic and as a WGC. So he's gone miscut, T52, T17 in order. Last year, he gained 4 strokes putting. Can we get that again? If you signed me up for Joaquin Niemann at 4 strokes putting, I'd probably bet a lot of money on him. The other thing to consider is, I think this is going to be quite firm and fast. Just by the lack of rainfall, the idea of this being like ball striker's paradise, it kind of reminds me a lot of his win at Riviera, right? Just like firm, fast golf course, go out, go wire to wire. I really think there's a path to the top of the board for Joaquin Niemann. He's going to have to putt a lot better, but the ball striking stuff is super strong. I mean, he's 15th off the tee. He's 35th on approach. What else do we have on him here? He's not very good on Bermuda grass surfaces putting, but it's not, I mean, he's tour average. If I can get like a decent week from him, that's fine. Yeah, I don't know. Like that stands out to me. That stands out to me because I think you're going to get a very popular Tom Kim, maybe a pretty popular Sung J M at $8,500. If you got single digit ownership on Morikawa and Niemann, it's pretty exciting. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but we'll find out later in the week. The other concerns are, I guess Hideki, like no idea what to do with Hideki. He's gotten better each and every year at TPC Southwind, 43rd, 20th, and a runner-up finish. The bizarre level of WDs and the weird DQ, and then when he has played all 4 rounds or 2 rounds, the approach play's been gone, barring 2 really good events, but like no consistency anymore. He's not driving it as well. He's lost in 5 straight with the driver. The putter, which had gains earlier in the year, that seems to have dissipated. This is a pretty concerning stat profile for me. You don't know if there's outside forces here, like he's thinking about going to live, or I'm not breaking any news here. He's been highly rumored. I don't know. That's a pretty ugly stat profile for a guy who this course should set up well for, but I don't think I can get there when I can probably get better, higher upside versions of low ownership for some of these other guys. So yeah, probably Niemann, probably Morikawa, and then we'll see what the rest of the ownership shakes out. Sam Burns finished runner-up here last year, so I think he was actually in a playoff as well. So that's certainly worth noting. Before we go to the 7K range, I did just want to run like a little playoff thing. Playoffs, just like who's played well in the playoffs. So I just loaded up the Holy Grail. We could do like the last, 5 years or so. This is Tour Championship. It's BMW Championship. I threw in the Northern Trust. I threw in Dell Technologies when that was an event, right? Just like the playoff events. So who kind of shows up at this time of the year? I think it is a little instructive just because of you always get the same strength of field, right? Or not the same strength of field by OWGR standards, but you always get the top 125 of the FedEx Cup playoffs. You get then the top 70, right? So I think it is a bit instructive. Justin Thomas is number 1. 52 rounds. He's gaining 1.47 strokes per round. Rahm is 2, Finau 3, Rory 4, Cantlay, of course. I'm just trying to see like who else shows up here besides the most expensive golfers. Alex Noren, $7,200 when he has gotten into the playoffs, which is not super frequently, has been very good. He's gaining a stroke per round over 26. KH Lee and Justin Rose. KH Lee only has 8 rounds. J Rose has 30 going back to 2018. He's been okay. So I'm just kind of looking for a little bit of value guys that might be able to show up come playoff time. Aaron Wise, Terrell Hatton, 28 and 30 rounds respectively. So, and Hatton's actually, that would be even better if he didn't miss the cut at the Northern Trust in 2021. Otherwise, it's a bunch of really good finishes. So I thought that's interesting. You can kind of look at that a couple of different ways, but those are your playoff guys. The 7K range. Wow. Okay. So let's start at the top here. I've mentioned Hatton, mentioned Aaron Wise. Both those guys played well last week, have played well in the playoffs. Max Homa, love you. This is about as concerning as it gets for Max Homa in terms of course history. So he is actually just hemorrhaging strokes at TPC Southwind. He's losing a stroke and a half per round, which is basically in 20 rounds, which is basically the worst of anyone who has played as many rounds as he has. Like, not even in this field, like of anyone, right? Anybody who's played 20 rounds at this golf course is basically the worst. And you could say, well, Rick, he lost 14 of those strokes in 2019, where he really gave it away. Well, sure, but he's also never gained here, right? He's played 5 times, and he has lost strokes to the field every single time. That could be just this course doesn't fit him very well. Then you look at what he's done recently, and losing strokes on approach in 3 straight, that's a little bit concerning. So I love Max. I do, love him on firm and fast on ball striking golf courses, but this might just be one that doesn't fit him. And I think that's okay, right? So I'll take a pass on Max Homa and try to find some other guys. The middle of the 7Ks is really interesting. Davis Riley, who, if you guys are following again, I'm such a big believer in, kind of snapped out of a little mini slump with a 13th place finish last week. Probably could have been better on Sunday, but hard to argue that. Corey Connors, who I was heavily invested in last week, had an absolute vintage Corey Connors week. Gain 8 strokes in the ball striking categories, lose 3 with the putter, finish T21. That's absolute vintage Corey Connors. Again, I'll say it, this should be a really good course for him, but he's going to have to putt well. Has he played here before? He's got to have played here before, yeah, because he's in all those WGCs and stuff. Let's see how he's putted. Well, 5 events, 5 times he's lost strokes to the field. And he's finished T27, T30, T36. Yeah, vintage Corey Connors. Man, one good putting week, Corey. Give me one good putting week. Probably unlikely to happen. The guy that I'm kind of interested, 2 that I'm most interested in, that I'm interested. Wow, I'll say interested one more time to see where the ownership goes on these guys. Seamus Power is number 1. Seamus Power is having a great year. Okay. He missed the cut at the Open Championship. That's the last time we saw him. It's the only missed cut he had at a major this year. In fact, he was T27 or better in the other 3. His putter can get very, very hot, and he's a good putter on all surfaces. That includes Bermuda. He is also, he's only ever played here as part of the FedEx St. Jude Classic, the regular tour event. 2017 and 2018, he finished 27th and 12th. I'd argue he's a better player now, right, than he was in 2017 and 2018. In fact, I'm not sure that's much of an argument. You look at the splits, he is in the midst of his best season ever. He's in the midst of his best off the tee season since 2016. He's in the midst of his best approach season. No, he's not. He was better last year, but still pretty good. He's in the midst of his best putting season since 2018. You add it all up, like I said, his best season ever, basically, since 2016, which I think is a really, really small sample size. So yeah, give me a little bit of Seamus Power. The other thing is, Taylor Pendrith, who talked about a lot a couple of weeks ago with the Rocket Mortgage, almost went out and won the thing. I did not necessarily think Sedgefield was a great spot for him. And I don't really think this is either, because you got to play out of the fairway a little bit more than he tends to. But I was impressed with what he did last week. And if he starts showing the ability, it's 5 straight top 13s now. 5 straight. I know it's spread out over 4 months, but it's 5 straight. If he starts showing the ability to show up at some of these golf courses that I don't think are particularly good spots for him, that'll be very impressive. We're still learning what he is. And if he comes in at very low ownership, having twice the weight on him might not be all that expensive for somebody who's $7,600. I will say Pendrith is also not as wild as maybe you think he is. Last 36 rounds, he's only losing 1.7% of fairways to the field. Adam Scott's losing 4%, right? So he's more accurate than Adam Scott is, and way, way longer, at least in the last 36. Again, a little bit of small-ish sample size. The rest of the 7K range, I'm not particularly thrilled. You know, I'm kind of looking for some of these dual threat guys off the tee and on approach. I suppose Mito Pereira would fit that category, although he has missed 4 consecutive cuts. There are rumors flying about outside influence kind of there. You wonder if that's impacting his play. So you'll have to make that decision for yourself. But again, looking for some dual threat guys. JT Poston's been very good off the tee and on approach. Cam Davis also just kind of dual threat, gaining nearly a stroke, a half a stroke off the tee and another half a stroke on approach, a little bit less on approach. But look at these finishes: 8th, 6th, 16th, 14th. This should be a decent spot for him if he can keep it in the fairway. Like, I'm not super stoked about these guys, but it's hard to overlook them. And then Ches Reavie has kind of solved the puzzle that is TPC Southwind. So it should make sense because he's very accurate. And when he plays out of the fairway, he can dial in the irons and the wedges. Look at his last 4 here. Didn't play at TPC Southwind last year, probably because he didn't qualify for the WGC. But he's gone 6th, 27th, 6th, and 4th. When you start comparing that to everybody at TPC Southwind dating back to 2018, I bet he's pretty close to the top. Of guys who have played 12 rounds, Webb Simpson's number 1, 1.79. Reavie's number 2, 1.42. Actually, let's go back 1 year because that would add another year. Yeah. So of 16 rounds, Reavie's the best. He's $7,100. Remember, he won a couple of weeks ago, so he's playing well now as well. So those would be the guys I'd be interested in the low 7s, the 6s. Now, the min price 6s shouldn't be that bad, right? Because everybody's in this field. You know, the top, like this is probably a decent week to be willing to be really scrubby, because by the nature of this event, these guys have had to have played well this year, or they've had to play well recently to get in, right? You know, someone like a Max McGreevy who just played himself in last week, like, yeah, he's min priced, but he's not playing poorly. He actually snapped out of like a very bad slump there, but he showed a little bit of upside. These guys are better than I think your normal 6K guys. So when we start flipping this around, just everybody in the 6K, let's go real short. Let's go last 16 rounds just to kind of see who's hot, because listen, it's playoff time here. Let's just figure it out. Hubbard is number 1, 6,900. Callum Tarrant, 6,600 is number 2. Taylor Moore, 68. James Hahn is $6,200. Steven Yeager, I was very impressed with last week. You know, I think he had the round of the day on Sunday, finished 13th. He finished 5th at the Rocket Mortgage. I like when you're kind of getting a couple of different types of golf courses, right? You get 2 good finishes there. He finished 22nd at the Barracuda, 30th at the John Deere. Starting to see a little momentum here from a $6,600 Steven Yeager after a really slow start to his season. I could definitely get behind a lot of these guys. If you're playing out of the fairway, if you think playing out of the fairway is required, your best bets are Mark Hubbard, Kevin Streelman, Martin Laird, and then probably Taylor Moore. Taylor Moore also, a 5th and a 6th. Taylor Moore's been great. Taylor Moore, 1.65 over his last 16. How does that shake out? 14th on tour. Wow. 14th on tour over his last 16. Gotta love that, don't you? It's pretty good. All right, let's run a model here. RickRunGood custom model. Lots of new things have been added. Constantly new things coming. Let's keep it real frisky. I was almost got caught in the middle of those. 16 rounds. We do want to emphasize ball striking, but also playing out of the fairway. So I don't know if maybe I can zoom in a little bit. Help you see this. I like to zoom real far out. There we go. All right, so let's do, and most of these guys have played a lot on the PG. I don't think we need to necessarily do weighted stuff in this field. You can if you want. There's never anything wrong with that. Let's say off the tee is going to be 15 on distance, 15 on accuracy. So that's a heavy dose of off the tee, and accuracy is just as much a part of it. Actually, let's do like 18 and 12. Let's say accuracy is more important. It's just so penal. The stats back it up. Okay. approach. Here, I think we can go with pure strokes gained approach. And actually, if we do 30 on driving, we got to do like 35 on approach, because that is, remember, more correlated than off the tee is. So I think that's fair. So now we've got 25. I don't think we need to do anything on putting, and we don't need to do anything on around the green. I don't think we need to. So we could say birdie or better. We could say bogey avoidance, considering that this is probably going to be a little bit tougher. We could do, there's about an equal number of shots. I think it's from like 125 to 200. We could bucket those, but again, we've already kind of hit our approach buckets. Let's do, I'll do this. I'll do 10 on strokes gained putting on Bermuda, just because that is the surface that we have this week. So I've got 25 left. I'm probably going to go with fantasy points gained. Not 152, 15. And then our last 10 on bogey avoidance. And let's just see what this gives us. Last 16 rounds. My number one golfer is, oh no, Scott Stallings. Well, I wanted to get freaky, didn't I? Let's look at Scott Stallings. Yeah, I mean, this is why. So last 16, holy crap. Wow. Last 16, so that's 4 starts. 8th, 4th, 10th, and 13th. He has gained, quick math, 16 strokes on approach. He's actually this is actually it's a very good stat profile. At least from the, obviously if I go back any further, I'm going to find 2 missed cuts for him, but because I put in 16, that is a very, very good stat profile from Scott Stallings. Wow. So no surprise he's number 1 when we start shortening it up like that. Tony Finau, number 2. Again, I think Tony Finau is criminally underpriced. Taylor Moore is 3, Mark Hubbard is 4. They get the benefit of the approach play. Emiliano Grillo, I mean, when you get real freaky here, this is what's going to happen. Grillo is 5, Pendrith 6, Hahn 7, Poston 8, Reavie 9, Cam Davis 10. Let's make it a little bit bigger, right? Let's go to 24 rounds. Or actually, if we're going to change it, we might as well actually change it. Let's do 36 and just see. I think we're going to get some bigger names here. I'm fine with doing either, right? I'm fine with doing either, but let's resort this. Yeah, so now number 1 is Xander. Xander, Scotty, Tony Finau, Davis, Riley, Sungjae. Scott Stallings still there. Rory is 7. Hubbard is 8. Mito is 9. Lowry's 10. Jaeger is 11 in the longer category, in the longer term. That's pretty impressive stuff. So maybe we kind of use the 36 as like our core, and we use the 16 as kind of those value options where Scott Stallings showed up and Grillo shows up and Pendrith shows up, and kind of be a little bit different there. So lots of different ways you can do it. Come use the model, sign up. Constant improvements being made there. But yeah, that's very, very interesting. Okay, well, we'll see how the rest of the week shakes out in terms of ownership and in terms of research, I guess is the word I was looking for. I don't know. That was weird. Okay. Tweet me at RickRunGood. Leave a comment below. More great stuff coming this week. Best of luck, and I'll talk to you guys soon.